All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be discussing how orthodontic practices should approach their marketing now. This webinar is presented by Scorpion. A couple of introductions. My name is Tony McInnes. I am the Executive Vice President of Internet Marketing here at Scorpion. And today, I'm joined by Andrea De La Cerda, who is our Director of Medical Marketing as well at Scorpion. Thanks for joining me today, Andrea.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing some very important marketing topics as it relates to the current state of affairs, as well as some discussions about how decisions we're making today and how that will impact our circumstances of tomorrow. A little bit about Scorpion. We've been helping businesses grow and capture more market share for almost 20 years now. We are located just north of Los Angeles, and we employ over 800 amazing people that are all dedicated to the success of our amazing clients. And although we're headquartered in California, we also have offices in Texas, New York, and Louisiana. You know, at Scorpion, we are so obsessed with transforming our clients' businesses and lives that we've been recognized by Google and won the coveted Technology Innovator of the Year award. And we're also two-time customer satisfaction champions. Those distinctions are make us very proud, and we're happy to be able to communicate that. We have strong market share in legal, home services, franchise, and healthcare, but we also have a ton of experience, years of experience working with orthodontic practices just like yours. So let's cover kind of what the agenda is today. So we're going to talk about some current challenges that we're all facing, no doubt. We're going to discuss what kind of changed and how orthodontists today are responding. We're going to talk about some ideas of what you can do about it. And we're also going to cover the value in keeping advertising in play. We're going to discuss some key takeaways. And Andrea, you've got a special offer that you're going to want to cover as well today.
Yep,
so
sounds good.
Let's jump right into some of the challenges that we're all experiencing today. I know one of those things just in general is the concept of PPE and sterilization requirements and how that might evolve looking into the future, Andrea.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions that are still unanswered, right? You know, when anyone who even visits the AAO website, they're continuing to add questions that orthodontists have that they want to get answered. And a lot of them are related to, you know, what are the tools that we're going to need? What's the equipment that we're going to need in order to safely care for patients in the future? And so I think that there's some of that might vary, you know, by where you are, but for the most part, you know, we don't have the answers to those questions. So I think that, you know, really orthodontists have to start to prepare themselves for knowing that many of these changes are going to be taking place when they open their doors again. Things are not going to be the same. They're going to be different permanently. And then just preparing themselves and their staff and their patients.
Good point. I think that another change and challenge that we're going to be facing is just how we deliver care, generally speaking. So what does that look like in a month from now, or even in 6 months or a year from now when people come to our office? Are they going to be waiting outside in their cars? Are we going to text them when it's time for their appointment?
I know. I look at this image of this empty waiting room, you know, and I wonder how long are our waiting rooms going to be empty? Do we need to keep them empty? I mean, you mentioned, you know, texting when you arrive and waiting in your car. And we know that some of that's already happening now, and how much of that will continue. It also puts more of that kind of emphasis on the patient experience, on more of that virtual experience and the digital experience. You know, we've talked about the patient experience being everything from when they're first searching for an orthodontist online, they find one that they think they can trust, they make an appointment, they come in, they experience the waiting room, they experience the staff, and then they actually sit in the chair and they interact with a caregiver. So what if that all changes? What if the emphasis is now on the digital experience? If orthodontists are then, you know, discouraged from a lot of this, you know, face-to-face care. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive a little deeper into that in a moment about how we communicate what those changes might look like and how we train our staff on that. Andrea, I think that costs to deliver care is likely to increase. what are some things that people should be thinking about right now, and what challenges are you hearing on your side about kind of looking forward to what that might look like?
Well, I think that based on what we're hearing about new requirements for both PPE and sterilization, even some questions about, as orthodontists, as these aerosols, as we're learning more about how the virus is infectious and how contagious it really is, then it leads to some questions about, are my patients safe? Am I safe? How long do I need to make sure the room's clean and vacant before I treat another patient? There's a lot of those questions that are being floating around. The answers are still not definitive, but it is suggesting that there's going to be an increase in the cost to deliver patient care. So then the other side of that is, how are we going to make up that cost? It's maybe not reasonable to assume that healthcare reimbursements are going to go up anytime soon. So where are we going to be able to cover that cost? And I think a lot of that is going to go back to a strong brand that's visible in your local market is extremely important, maybe now more than ever, not to mention one that patients can trust. Other things like maybe delivery, changing up delivery. So maybe some telehealth appointments and incorporating that in as a way to, maintain your patient load, or perhaps membership programs to kind of help to, cover the that cost gap. So there's options, but I think orthodontists are just going to have to be creative and innovative right now in a way that they haven't had to in a while.
Yeah, all good things to be thinking about in terms of challenges that we will all likely face in the coming weeks and months. But there's also been a lot of things that have already changed. One of those things is just what we're seeing on the search trend side, right? So, think about the activity of certain keywords being looked for on Google, for instance. The term orthodontist has declined since this COVID situation kind of came upon. And although it's kind of flattened out and held a little bit more steady since early March, I would expect that those terms would continue to drop as long as we're in this pandemic and practices are closed. I think that there's also some other search terms that we're seeing a decline in. So things like braces or clear aligners, those have also dipped as well. However, we've seen some increases in some very specific type of searches. So for example, does Delta Dental cover Invisalign, or how expensive is Invisalign? Things like that. What's the thought process behind maybe an increase in some of those types of searches?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, these search terms have increased significantly, more than 4,000%. And I think what that tells us is that patients are still, eventually they're in need of coming in to see an orthodontist. And right now they're just researching, right? They're spending that time to do that. And they're really going into depth to research. And so that's good news for orthodontists in the end. I mean, you can kind of, it does suggest a pent-up demand that we're going to see come to fruition when this is all over.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's definitely a need kind of brewing and building at this time. But one thing we know is that there's been an increase in search terms that are related to emergency type situations. So, I would definitely encourage any practice that is capable and prepared to offer those types of services are in front of those right now.
Absolutely. If orthodontists are in a position and equipped to handle emergency procedures in their practice, they should absolutely be running campaigns around emergency orthodontic care. No doubt about it. We are seeing traffic go up. I mean, that's the area of orthodontia that is continuing, and absolutely should be taking advantage of that.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of changes in search trends, which translates into changes in patient behavior online. And Andrea, I know that recently Facebook reported that there's been a more than 50% increase in Facebook engagement just over the last month or so, or 45 days or so. But we're also seeing increases in other things, like online shopping is up by a third, streaming video is up by 42%. Instagram is also up in terms of their engagement. So I think that tells us that while people may not necessarily be in a position to find an orthodontist because they're actively looking for one and ready to make an appointment, there's still some interest just perhaps in different channels and in different ways. And people are spending time on social media right now.
Yeah, and this is really good news for a practice that has been maintaining a fair amount of engagement on social media in the past, because they're going to be seen that much more right now. And then this is just a lesson also to orthodontic practices that don't have a social media presence. Now is the time to do it. If you have some downtime in your practice and can shift your focus into having a Facebook presence, having an Instagram presence, and then creating some content that will be, people can engage with, now is absolutely the time to do it if you haven't done it already.
Yeah, and Andrea, it wasn't long ago, a week or so ago, that we got really curious as well about kind of what people are feeling and thinking. So we decided to run a survey of our own of, I think, almost 1,000 adults. And what we found was that a quarter of those people said that they were putting off dental procedures until after the pandemic. That's good news for orthodontists, right?
Definitely. It's great news. And some other good news came out of that patient attitude survey as well. 60% of respondents believe that COVID-19 crisis will resolve itself within the next 6 months. So that's positive. That seems very optimistic. And then over 40% say they're actually putting money away right now in savings. So that also is good news for anyone that might be, for orthodontists out there, and suggests that people are, as they're saving, and if they're in need of dental procedures at some point, they will be able to afford it.
Right. So just kind of walking backward into that, you have a quarter of people who are saying that they're putting off dental work, only second to travel, by the way, which I thought was really interesting. But they're also optimistic that this pandemic will be over within the next 6 months, hopefully a lot sooner than that. But they're also saving money, which makes them an ideal patient of many of our clients, which is fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
So we also learned that more than half of people that we surveyed are spending 5 hours or more a day online. So I know that I'm no different than that. I'm spending a lot more than that. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I stop and think about it, I probably am. It's kind of a shocking statistic, though. I'd like to say that I'm really not online, that much of the day, but especially doing things like outside of work, but I probably am.
Right.
That's a lot of time, watching videos and, online shopping and browsing Facebook.
Yeah. So Andrea, with all of these challenges and changing kind of, behaviors that we're seeing across the board, I'd like to talk a little bit about what some of our clients are doing and how they're responding to it. I know that telehealth is one of the features that many of our clients are really promoting at this time.
Yeah, I mean, telehealth we've been talking about telehealth now for several months, but boy, I mean, now it is in the forefront of most orthodontist minds right now. And this example, Plaza Dentistry, is a client of ours, has really taken advantage of telehealth. They're offering some video conferencing for patient consultations, monthly check-ins with clients, and they're featuring it on their website as well, making it very easy for patients to be able to schedule virtual appointments with them. So it's a great way for them to still maintain that content or their contact with their patients over the course of the month and not lose that. It's extremely important for orthodontists. So they're taking advantage of it. And if you think about that combined with some other innovative strategies we'll talk about, I mean, it really helps to maintain your patient base. You might not be able to see all of your patients, but those that you can see virtually, it's a great way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Another good example of what some of our clients are doing is Dr. Ruth from Tennessee. And she's doing an amazing job at posting on social media with really fun and creative things. And she's even employed some TikTok videos to reach the younger audience.
Yeah, she has such a fun, engaging personality. And so social media she's had a lot of fun with it because She can be creative, she can be engaging and fun, and it comes through in a really authentic way. So social media is great because it gives each practice and each orthodontist kind of has their own personality, and it's a good opportunity to kind of be authentic and be personal with your patients and continue, to engage with them. She does really fun things, like she'll do some social media contests. I know that she did a t-shirt contest at one point with some of her teenagers. She does birthday shout outs and virtual celebrations just to kind of make sure that she's still in front of them. And it's great for her and for her patients, but also for her brand.
Yeah, she's doing a great job at staying top of mind with her current patient base and even more market share than that. So Dr. Julio in Miami from Biscayne Dental is also doing a great job in employing educational videos on YouTube, right?
Yeah. And Dr. Julio has always, or for quite a while, he's been creating these videos, but since this COVID crisis, he's really put an emphasis on, using his time to do that. And it's fantastic. I mean, he's producing video content that's engaging and very educational. A lot of the recent videos, of course, have to do with COVID-19 and kind of just talk about how to maintain oral health and just keep yourself healthy during this time. So it's not only is it educational and relevant, but then it's also he's taking advantage of the fact that, as we've said before, so many more people now are streaming video online. And so he's there. He's there where they are. So it's great.
Yeah, another great creative way to provide value to people, even though they can't come and see you in your office. Dr. Speaks, another great client of ours. I was joking earlier that he's kind of become the Grubhub of orthodontia. So he's actually making home deliveries of new aligners to his patients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had said to us, that as everything kind of happened and the stay-at-home order came through, if you remember, a month ago, it was every day was just something, it was new news. And so he was having to adjust and be innovative every day in terms of how am I going to continue to maintain, some level of patient care. And so he's doing, home deliveries of aligners. And I think when you think about that, if you can, maybe between both telehealth and adding home delivery into the mix, there are some really creative things that orthodontists are doing just to make sure that they're still staying in front of their patients.
And what we just talked about was a handful of some of those creative ideas to kind of think outside of the box, so to speak, to keep providing value, even though offices might be closed. But there's a lot of other things that can be done as well by anybody. And some of them are really, really simple. For example, claiming your Google local listing, your GMB as it's called, Google My Business, making sure that your business name and your address and your phone number and your operating hours are accurate. Those are all things that can actually pay phenomenal search engine optimization benefits. And a lot of people don't know that. And they haven't claimed those listings. These are things that people can do right now while they're listening to this, maybe. Yes, and
this is something simple to do, and it amazes me how many both dentists and orthodontists just miss this. They forget to do it or don't know they should do it. I was just telling you this last week. I had a situation where I was trying to get in touch with a healthcare provider. I went to their Google My Business listing. I just touched on the call button, and I expected them to be open because I could see their hours were until 6 o'clock, only to find out that they closed at 3, and I was waiting around for hours for them to get back to me. It's just things like that don't make for a positive patient experience, but are super easy to fix.
Yeah, tremendous benefits in just keeping that claimed and updated. And another good example is, since we know that Google has been a mobile first environment for, the last few years, let's make sure that our website actually looks really good on a mobile device. I think the best way to check that is to simply use your mobile device and look at your website. That's called responsive technology, when the site kind of expands and contracts based on the screen size or the device type. There are some other great ways too to make sure that your website is responsive and mobile friendly, right, Andrea?
Yeah, and I think that if you check your website and you have to zoom in with your fingers to see the words, that's a good sign that your website's probably not responsive and it's time for a redesign. But even like page load times is another, right? At page load times, I think that we now want to keep them under 3 seconds. And but I don't know, Tony, do you have a tool to do that? There's a way to check to see on your own, right? People can check that.
Yeah. You can just go to the Google PageSpeed Insights tool. You can just actually Google that and pop your URL into the search bar and hit search, and it'll actually give you some great information on your desktop speed, your mobile speed. It'll kind of make some recommendations about things that you can solve, like maybe there are images that are too large that need to be compressed. Just even some simple things that you can probably fix on your own to at least help your website be more mobile friendly if it's not already. So those are some things too. Communication, Andrea, is always key, regardless of kind of what time we're living in. But I think right now it's more important than ever. So, has anything changed at the office? What types of, safety precautions are you taking or planning on taking? Andrea, talk to me a little bit about how we can be communicating right now. And that in itself is a creative strategy.
Oh, absolutely. And you mentioned that we should always be communicating with patients, which is absolutely true. But it seems like now more than ever with things changing so frequently, expectations, both patient expectations and even your staff, it's just to make sure that you're in front of people is super important. I think though, at the end of the day, both what we've been hearing is both patients and your staff for that matter, but patients just really want to feel safe. Right? They want to feel like they're going to be cared for when they come back and into the office. What has changed? So things to think about, how to communicate to them, things that you're doing differently now as a practice to make sure that the environment is sterile and clean, and to make sure that you have the correct processes in place to just help protect them and yourself and your staff too as well. It's important to think about. But at the end of the day, that's what they wanted. They would just want to feel safe.
Yeah. So these are just some examples of some quick things that we could be thinking about right now to kind of, get our message out and just make sure that we're set up correctly. But really, this is a time where many of us are obviously not in the office and we may have some time on our hands. And I think it's just a great opportunity to use it wisely, to get creative on social media, to set new standards, to stay engaged with our patients, to be prepared for new PPE requirements or sterilization requirements. I think that telehealth could be something like we talked about earlier that we might want to be looking into. You talked about some membership programs. So these are all just some examples of ways that we could be using this current time in a way that impacts not only the right now, but the future as well.
Yeah, and I think the important takeaway here too is just to make sure that orthodontists really should be thinking about what the recovery plan is. And if you can map that out over the course of the next several weeks and really try to be specific with certain dates in mind, the date that you project to open back up, and then backing up from that, okay, well, then when do I need to make sure that I have all of the correct PPE ordered and ready to go? When does it need to be delivered to the office to make sure that I have enough time to train my staff and make sure that everybody's up to speed on the new processes for patient care before we open our doors? Where in there am I communicating with my existing patients? And also, where do I begin my marketing, ramping up my marketing? So I think that if orthodontists, I don't know that everyone is thinking about all of those things, maybe some of those things, but to the extent that you can lay that out into a recovery plan and try to stick to that, I think is a really wise course of action right now.
Yeah, I think another thing that we could be doing to make that recovery plan less difficult is to keep some level of advertising in play, even right now, as crazy as that might sound. Maybe it's not the traditional, allocation of budget that it was a month or two ago, but keeping some level of advertising and staying top of mind, I think is really important right now, because ultimately, if we could stay top of mind, when that surge that is building kind of pops, so to speak, we're going to be there.
Yes, and it's really counterintuitive, I think, to most small businesses. I've been in the business of advertising for 23 years, and I've seen, a couple of downturns. And every time, it's always those brands that decide to stay in the advertising game that come out so much stronger than the ones that didn't. And although oftentimes, for many small business owners, it's the first thing they want to cut is their advertising, right? My practice is closed. Why should I be advertising? Well, there are still a brand awareness campaigns you could be running to take advantage of the fact that your competitors are not, right? So when you stop and think about it, it does make sense. If I'm out there and everyone else is dropping out of the game, not only do I get to take advantage of lower costs for those ads, but I also get to be seen without, the clutter of my competitors getting in the way. It's
smart. We don't have another global pandemic to compare anything to, but we have seen economic downturns in the past.
Right.
And what we do know is that at a time like this, the market has a tendency to reset itself. So that means that the players in that market have this opportunity to really establish themselves as the leader within their market. And by continuing to stay top of mind and have a good, strong branding campaign, that really allows us to kind of seize the moment, so to speak, and kind of set ourselves up, not just for the immediate future, but for the longer term as well.
Definitely. And I think that this time around, unlike most downturns, I think there's a plan in place for recovery, we hope, right? There's a lot of money being invested back into quick recovery, which isn't always the case, isn't usually the case. So that's also good news.
Yeah. So Andrea, let's touch on a few key takeaways since we're running out of time here that I think are important just to kind of quickly reiterate. We talked about communication and the importance of being creative and ongoing with that. Keeping some level of advertising in play is something we just talked about. Having the ability to make some simple changes to your website or just your overall online presence that are going to matter immediately. Those are some really simple things we can do right away. I think getting creative and just taking the opportunity with whether it's video or whether it's delivering new aligners or whether it's putting some sort of social media campaign together that's just really interesting and fun. And again, just to kind of reiterate, putting a recovery plan in place to prepare for what's to come in hopefully the next couple of weeks. I think those are all very important key takeaways that we should be thinking about as we walk away from this conversation. Andrea, I know you had a special offer that you wanted to talk about. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I just want to encourage anybody who's listening to this presentation and wants some more information or just wants to talk with someone to just evaluate your own digital presence. We definitely want to invite you to do that. We have a URL here that's being shown on the screen, scorpion.co/medical SOIM 2020. And if you go to that website and just fill out your information and agree to speak to someone who can help you just evaluate for free, just evaluate your presence online, we would love to send you a copy of The State of Internet Marketing for 2020, which is a book that we recently put out in January. It's just loaded with all kinds of best practices and information and tips on how medical practices, including orthodontists, can really just what they can take advantage of to make sure that they have a strong digital presence and they're in front of the ideal patients. So if you go to that website and just let us know that you want to talk to someone, we'll send you right away a copy of our latest book. So that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, please do reach out to us if you're thinking about any of the things that we've discussed today and you're curious about some things that you can do to improve your online presence, just give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and please do sign up for that free book. It's phenomenal. Well, thank you everybody so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. On behalf of the entire Scorpion team, we wish you a great rest of the week and we look forward to the next time.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.